Imagine waking up every single night to the sound of voices that no one else can hear. Imagine looking into a mirror and seeing faces staring back at you that aren't your own. Now imagine that your family believes you are possessed by demons, while doctors insist you are suffering from a severe mental illness. Who would you believe? In the early 1970s, a quiet young woman from a small village in Germany became the center of one of the most controversial and disturbing cases in modern history. Her name was Anneliese Michel, and more than 50 years after her death, people around the world still argue over one terrifying question. Was she mentally ill? Or was she truly possessed? Anneliese Michel was born on September 21, 1952, in the deeply religious town of Liebfing, West Germany. She grew up in a strict Catholic family where faith shaped nearly every aspect of daily life. Her parents believed in discipline, prayer, confession, and absolute devotion to God. Friends described Anneliese as kind, intelligent, polite, and deeply faithful. She attended church regularly, played the piano, and dreamed of becoming a teacher one day. To everyone around her, she seemed like an ordinary young woman with a bright future ahead. But everything began to change when she was just 16 years old. One day, while attending school, Anneliese suddenly collapsed without warning. Witnesses later said her body became stiff, her arms trembled uncontrollably, and she appeared unable to speak. Doctors diagnosed her with a seizure disorder and later concluded that she was suffering from temporal lobe epilepsy, a neurological condition capable of causing seizures, hallucinations, confusion, and unusual emotional experiences. She was prescribed medication, and for a short time, her condition appeared stable. Then the nightmares began. Anneliese claimed she woke in the middle of the night unable to move. She felt an invisible force pressing heavily against her chest while dark figures surrounded her bed. Sometimes she heard whispering voices calling her name. Other times she believed she smelled sulfur, burning flesh, or something rotten that no one else could detect. Her family became increasingly alarmed as these terrifying experiences grew more frequent. Doctors adjusted her medication several times, believing the symptoms were connected to her epilepsy. But instead of improving, her condition became dramatically worse. She began hearing voices throughout the day. She claimed the voices mocked her, threatened her, and told her she was damned forever. She reported seeing frightening faces, terrifying shadows, and what she believed were demons following her wherever she went. Soon, even entering a church became unbearable. According to family members, Anneliese said she could no longer look at religious paintings or crucifixes without feeling overwhelming fear and physical pain. She refused to drink holy water because she insisted it burned her mouth. During prayer, she sometimes screamed uncontrollably or claimed invisible forces were pulling her away from the altar. Her behavior became increasingly unpredictable. She would suddenly grow angry without explanation, destroy religious objects, or spend hours kneeling in prayer while crying uncontrollably. Despite receiving treatment from several psychiatrists and neurologists, her symptoms continued to intensify. Doctors diagnosed her with depression in addition to epilepsy and prescribed stronger medications, including antipsychotic drugs. Yet nothing seemed to help. As the months passed, her family became convinced that medicine alone could not explain what they were witnessing. Anneliese herself eventually reached the same conclusion. She repeatedly told her parents that she did not believe she was simply sick. She insisted something evil had taken control of her life. Desperate for answers, the family turned to their local Catholic priests and requested permission for an exorcism. Their request was denied. Church officials believed her condition was medical, not supernatural, and advised the family to continue psychiatric treatment. But Anneliese's condition continued to deteriorate. She claimed the voices had become louder than ever. She stopped sleeping normally, isolated herself from friends, and began displaying behavior that terrified everyone around her. Those closest to her believed they were watching a gentle young woman slowly disappear before their eyes. By 1975, after years of failed medical treatment and relentless suffering, the Catholic Church finally agreed to authorize an official exorcism. No one involved could have imagined that the decision would soon lead to one of the most controversial deaths in modern religious history. In September 1975, Bishop Joseph Stengel granted permission for an official exorcism, an extraordinary decision that the Catholic Church rarely makes. Two priests, Father Arnold Renz and Father Ernst Alt, were chosen to perform the ritual. According to those involved, the ceremonies took place once or twice each week and often lasted for several hours. During the sessions, Anneliese reportedly screamed, growled, cursed, and spoke in voices that witnesses claimed sounded completely different from her own. More than 40 hours of audio recordings were eventually made, capturing portions of the rituals. The recordings would later become some of the most controversial pieces of evidence ever associated with an alleged case of demonic possession. As the months passed, Anneliese's physical condition deteriorated rapidly. She spent hours each day kneeling in prayer until her knees were badly damaged. She frequently refused food and water, believing she was being punished or that evil spirits would not allow her to eat. Friends and family later said she performed hundreds of deep kneeling bows every day, placing enormous strain on her already weakened body. Her weight dropped dramatically. She became painfully thin, exhausted, and increasingly unable to care for herself. Despite her condition, the exorcisms continued. During several sessions, Anneliese reportedly claimed that multiple demons had possessed her, including figures identified as Lucifer, Judas Iscariot, Nero, Cain, and Adolf Hitler. These claims shocked everyone present and fueled the belief that her case was unlike anything the priests had ever encountered. Skeptics, however, argued that her statements reflected the influence of her religious upbringing, severe psychological distress, and the expectations surrounding the rituals themselves. On July 1, 1976, after nearly 10 months and 67 exorcism sessions, Anneliese Michel died in her family home at just 23 years old. The official cause of death was malnutrition and dehydration. By the time she died, she weighed only about 68 pounds, or roughly 30 kilograms. Her body was covered with bruises. Her teeth were damaged, and she was too weak to stand without assistance. News of her death spread quickly across Germany and soon attracted international attention. What followed was just as shocking as the events that came before. Instead of quietly closing the case, German authorities charged both priests and Anneliese's parents with negligent homicide. Prosecutors argued that medical treatment should have continued and that her life could have been saved. The defense insisted that everyone involved genuinely believed they were trying to rescue her from an evil force that medicine had failed to cure. During the trial, the courtroom heard portions of the original exorcism recordings. Jurors listened to hours of disturbing screams, prayers, and conversations that many found deeply unsettling. Medical experts testified that epilepsy, psychosis, depression, and other psychiatric disorders could explain her symptoms. Religious witnesses argued that certain behaviors could not easily be explained by conventional medicine alone. After months of testimony, the court found the two priests and Anneliese's parents guilty of negligent homicide. They received suspended prison sentences and probation rather than serving time behind bars. The verdict did little to settle the debate. Instead, it divided public opinion even further. To some people, Anneliese Michel was a tragic victim of untreated mental illness whose medical needs were overshadowed by religious beliefs. To others, she remained one of the strongest modern examples of genuine demonic possession. Even today, psychiatrists, neurologists, theologians, historians, and paranormal investigators continue to study her case. The surviving audio recordings remain widely discussed, and countless books, documentaries, and films have been inspired by her story. The 2005 movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose was loosely based on the events surrounding her life and death, introducing millions of people to the case for the first time. More than 50 years later, one question still refuses to disappear. Did Anneliese Michel suffer from a devastating combination of neurological and psychiatric illnesses that medicine of the time could not adequately treat? Or did something happen that science has yet to explain? The evidence allows different people to reach different conclusions, and that uncertainty is precisely why her story continues to fascinate the world. Whether viewed through the lens of faith, psychology, medicine, or history, the case of Anneliese Michel remains one of the most disturbing true stories ever recorded. It serves as a haunting reminder of how difficult it can be to separate belief from evidence when fear, suffering, and hope collide. And perhaps that is the most terrifying part of all, because the greatest mystery was never simply what happened to Anneliese Michel. The greatest mystery is whether humanity will ever truly know the answer.